right, let's see. The meeting being live streamed. Got it. Yep. All right. So we should be live. Now the question is, are we on the correct channel or is it live with Phil?
We're never on the correct channel. It always switches streams and I don't know why.
Yeah.
But if it does, it does. People will switch over. That's it.
It's not just, okay, there's two. It's not just the money that's inflated, but at least we got the right, at least we got the name right this time.
Okay, I'm just going to alert people.
Yeah, just cancel the other one.
On a new stream. This always happens. All right, so let's start this live stream. Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
It changes by the hour, but I'm swinging a little bit less from crazy to crazy and starting to stabilize in my new reality of I don't know when total war is going to break out. Yeah. So that's good.
It's yeah, it's awful. I mean, I saw the huge protests in the nearby countries, but I'm like, you guys' currency's already hyperinflating. Like, war is not going to help that at all. I would focus on domestic stuff.
Yeah, it's already is this it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute this. Okay. I mean, I
saw the huge.
It's already inflating here because the dollar shekel exchange rate is down from or up from 3.8 to now 4.1.
So how, like, how can anyone, I mean, I can understand there's a little bit of ability to maintain a war during inflation, but how is Israel going to prosecute the offensive in Gaza with a hyperinflating currency? And how is Turkey going to march their soldiers into Gaza to save them with a hyperinflating currency? None of this makes any sense.
Well, I don't know how on the day-to-day, but what I can tell you is that on during the invasion of Lebanon, the first invasion of Lebanon in 1981, or it was in 1981 or 1983. It was one of those years. And the reason that Israel invaded Lebanon and occupied Beirut at that time was because they were bombing Kiryat Shmona, which is exactly what they're doing now. So Ariel Sharon invaded, and then hyperinflation happened in 1984. So it wasn't that long after the invasion. We only pulled out of Lebanon in 2000, and since then it's gotten worse. Right, yeah. From 1984 to 1981 to 2000, there wasn't that much trouble in Lebanon because the army was in there stopping them from bombing our cities. that was the point of it. So yeah, hyperinflation could happen, but it's not like Israel fell apart in 1984.
That's interesting. I mean, I've never physically gone through a hyperinflation, so I'm curious to see like how society just kind of muddles along.
Well, we're kind of doing that now because the feeling here is that the government really isn't in charge anymore and we can't really rely on them for anything. So it's our army now. It's the citizens' army, and we're the ones supplying it. I mean, I just sent my kids to a volunteer where they're sewing stuff for the soldiers to keep them warm. Everybody's kids are out working because the schools are shut down. It's like we're supporting the army now. It's not the government can't even do anything. It's our thing now. So I mean, and I don't say it in a frustrated way. I say that like this is what I expected. It's how it's going to be. So how are we going to handle it? I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do. How do we survive here so far? I have no idea. But we will, and we'll win at some point. Maybe not this round, but we will. Anyway, let's veer off of Israel.
Spontaneous order, right?
Yeah. So a viewer sent in the question. Not the question, but he wanted us to talk about inflation and other aspects of society, how other realms sort of reflect what's happening, not sort of actually reflect what's happening in the monetary sphere. The inflation of really the problems, as I see them, the biggest ones are medical, pharmaceutical, educational, and what was the other one? I mean, everything's. We can start with those two. The educational inflation started pretty much with the closing the gold window because that's when student funding started to get really big, and it's gotten bigger ever since. It never goes in the other direction.
Sorry, was there a question at that point?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, not a question, but talk about educational inflation. I mean, everybody has a bachelor's degree and bachelor's degrees are worthless. Now everybody has a doctorate and doctorates are worse than worthless. unless you have them in an actual engineering background where you're actually learning something technical that fits with physical reality.
Well,
You may as well
even then, like
bullshit.
even there, like the wokeness has gone in. So there's like, racist bridges. Like you have to be you have to design your bridges in a, egalitarian, non-racist way, It's just the Marxism is like introduced it. The way I look at it is that the cost inflation distorts the cost of bad ideas and good ideas. Just gets everything confused, that you can't tell what a good idea is versus what a bad idea is. So when the bad ideas fail and they just get bailed out and funded and propagated another round or two, then you don't discover it's a bad idea until the very end. Like if you remember the rapper B.O.B., he was walking around saying the earth was flat. The cost of believing
that.
Oh, okay. The rapper B.O.B., he had a couple of hits 10, 15 years ago, and then he fell off the radar. And then suddenly I think he had a brief blip back up because he became a literal flat earther. At least he was presenting himself as a literal flat earther, not he might have been doing it for show. I don't know. But the cost of believing the earth is flat is essentially zero unless you are, in astrophysics or something, right? It doesn't, like for day-to-day operations, it doesn't matter. You can believe that, and it costs you absolutely nothing. But he's not an anti-graver, right? He's not like, gravity's not real, and I'll prove it by jumping out this window right now, and I'll float into the sky, right? So if
an anti-graver, okay,
yeah. So if it like an anti-graver will be proven wrong immediately and with severe consequences, a flat earther doesn't feel any consequences. So what inflation does is remove the consequences of being wrong. If I start a company,
more accurately, it removes the immediate consequences of being wrong and puts them into the future.
Yeah. Pushes it off far into the future, it could be, So let's say I have an idea for a tech startup. We'll call it, hotdaughter.com, where you rate your neighbor's daughter's attractiveness. And I want to get funding for that. Now, in a sound money system, any investment angel investor is going to be like, that's a terrible idea. You're going to be physically beat up. I'm going to be sued, right? We're not doing this, right? But in an inflation environment, sure, let's try it and see what happens, And then the predictable consequences, follow through. And then it turns out, hotdaughter.com was a terrible idea. And everyone just go, we'll just go borrow some more money and, try something else,
Well, somebody on this chat's going to start hotdaughter.com. You're going to be blamed for it. And for the final corruption of American society, they're going to blame you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we already have hotdaughter.com. We have OnlyFans, which might be worth it. I'm not sure.
Well, again, I've said this before. That is going to be revealed to be one of the worst ideas in history of going down that road, because there's an immediate for very young, good-looking women. You can make a lot, and I suggest if you have gone down that road, you save it in a productive way. I doubt there's a lot of OnlyFans models watching our channel, but if there are, we have provided you the mechanism to save your wealth. If you listen to our advice.
So there's a good concrete example. How does OnlyFans, something like OnlyFans, come from an inflated society, and how does the end of inflation end OnlyFans?
The way I see it is that women are looking for a source of income, and that men who traditionally are providing that income are unable to provide it to keep up with inflation. Unless they're riding the inflation, some guys are riding the Bitcoin wave and they're able to keep up. But the average Joe Sixpack, who's trying to live an honest life, is a mechanic or an engineer in a factory or something, the treadmill's just getting faster and faster and faster. It's harder and harder. He's stressed out. He's working 14-hour days. He's taking up drinking or something. And she's like, well, this is not appealing, and I have to go get a job now because he's not making enough. And then they're fighting, and all the couple fights are starting, and it's making it worse, and all this stuff is happening. So this, very attractive possible career option is dangling itself like, yeah, we'll pay you, you can make $500, you're 22 years old, very attractive. We'll pay you $200 an hour or something, $500 an hour. That's hard to That's a hard thing to resist.
Yeah.
And, in the men, on the other side, there's the unmarried men who weren't able to even get married, and they're just simping on, they live with their parents. They can't get a house. They can't get an apartment. They can't display the successful nesting abilities to attract a wife. So they're sitting at home simping online. They're like, well, I'll just pay this girl to, look at her.
Right.
And the system sort of, propagates that. I'm gonna put it that way. So right. I caution everyone, and now I'm a 40, it's hard for a 20-year-old man to think about the same way as a 40-year-old man with a family. But as a 40-year-old man with a family, I'm like, you must resist all of this. This is all demonic. Stay away from it.
Yeah. You definitely want to stay away from it. And how does, let's say the dollar collapses and we go back to gold and silver, how does OnlyFans end in that world?
Oh God. Well, for one thing, the pay pigs are broke. So there's no, like, the online simps are suddenly like, well, I can pay Tatiana, or I can go get some bread. I think I'll go get some. And then Tatiana's now 29, not 22, and hitting the wall, and she's going to be like, well, I better find someone to help me here. I'm going to be in a world of hurt, because that curve of pay. I mean, you hear these women that try, I'll take a go at OnlyFans, and they're 32 and they're making, $5 an hour, not the big bucks. So, and they're doing humiliating things to themselves to get that $5. So, that it's almost like movie stars or actors, right? You only, a few make a ton, and then everyone else makes almost nothing. So but Tatiana, who's now 28, is now, the internet is forever, as they say. Well, it may not be. I don't know. The internet might go down. It can restart. But if the internet is forever, now she's going to have trouble getting a guy who wants to. I mean, she'll find, there's always somebody who'll put up with that, but you've cut off higher sections of potential men. Now, I mean, the market will clear. I think the marriage market will clear. I think men will say, I think we'll all sort of forgive each other. I'm hoping we'll all sort of forgive each other for the inflationary past and move forward in a more traditional and serious way. But
yeah, I mean, you could, I think, legitimately see OnlyFans and the way the porn industry works now is the inflation of porn, right? It used to be a very small, concentrated industry, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger with inflation. I mean, how that's an interesting question. How is the porn industry supposed to look in a sound money society? Now, there's a doctorate for you.
Well, I mean, there's always a market for it, but I think it wouldn't be like the free and widely available probably won't be there. Because Google, I mean, if you look at how does Google get its money, right? It gets its money from tracking us and then selling all that to advertisers. If we're broke, we're not worth tracking, right? If we're just completely broke, it's like, well, we're not going to spend all that money trying to track you down. So.
Right. Oh, we're talking about the disintegration of all the power centers, including big tech, big government. Everything's concentrated because of inflation. It's just hard for people to see how the money printing is connected to that. It's connected to everything.
Absolutely everything. So, I've spoken about this before. I've gotten flack from my job, and I'm like, the job that I'm supposed to be doing, the free market, it probably doesn't exist. And if it does, I don't know what it is, because it's everything's so contorted that we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. Like, maybe I'm supposed to be a luchador, and my true dream of being a Mexican
bullfighter.
Huh?
Is that a bullfighter?
No, it's a Mexican professional wrestler with the masks and I mean, maybe that's what I was supposed to be doing, and the market did not signal that to me correctly, so I ended up, at a desk job, right?
Okay.
And when the system goes down, and then suddenly I will say, I can finally follow my true dreams of being a luchador, right?
Hey, if that's your dream, go do it.
If that's your dream, yeah, you can follow it, and the market will reward you for it if you're good at it, right? If it's what you were supposed to be doing, the market will let you know. But right now, even if you're not like working for the government or as a government contractor, which is something like 40% of everybody now, if you're making a sandwich near a police station, like if you run a sandwich shop near a police station, police come in, they buy your sandwich, that's government money paying for the sandwich. So you're still in the system, right? The only way, unless you're living in the middle of nowhere and you're off the grid and you're taking silver in payment, you're still in the system. Like you're still in the inflationary system.
Yeah, well, there's no way to escape it completely because money is fungible and inflation is going into the system, so everybody's affected. There's no escape from it other than knowing it's going to collapse and then hoping that you'll have the skills to get out the other side of it. Anyway,
I
so
don't even know
was
what
all
the skill. I have no idea what the skills are going to be. Like, I don't. Do I need to be a farmer? Am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be learning mechanics or farming or carpentry? Am I supposed to be? I mean, I'm hoping there's need for Austrian economics on the other side. There
I
should
don't
be.
I don't think you have to calculate it that way.
Yeah.
I think every man gets some sort of satisfaction from working with his hands in any way that he knows how. You know, I'm a writer, so I like working with my hands by writing scrolls, writing Sifrei Torah, writing mezuzahs, you know, in the old script. That's what I do because my inclination is to write. So if if your inclination is to become a wrestler, I would look for something in the more productive line of economics that is sort of related to wrestling, but not wrestling. I don't know. Loading docks.
Yeah, loading. Yeah, something. Yeah.
I don't know. But
Well, just
if you work with your hands, you'll be fine.
The problem. So I looked into like teaching economics again, and the problem is it's like the market right now is demanding. Like for example, your main competitor, I would say, was probably like Euro. Your main Keynesian competitor on YouTube is probably Eurodollar University. He's probably about twice. You never heard of him? Okay,
No.
he's probably Jeff Snyder. He's about twice as big as your channel, and it's all Keynesian. I mean, it's all Keynesian, and the market seems to want that because it's like, again, inflation is disguised. So all these bad economic ideas kind of proliferate out there, and people don't know what good economics is versus what bad economics is because the inflation is distorting it.
Mm-hmm. What happens to we're talking about inflation and the centralization of all these systems, where they're talking about the centralization of education in terms of the Department of Education and these big governmental bodies that direct it all, or the big doctor unions that tell everyone what to do, whether it's the FDA or some other American Heart Association crap, whatever, these big centralized places. And what it also with industry that creates huge centralized pieces of capital. So what happens to those big pieces of capital is the same thing that happens to the big centralized bureaus that direct entire industries. Everything gets decentralized, but what actually happens to the capital? We could say the FDA, let's say the FDA disbands, and then all these doctors are free to experiment again, reconnect with nature, figure out new treatments for diseases that we've been having since the modern era, and really break up and have a brainstorming of society again, instead of just top-down crap. But the FDA doesn't have a lot of capital. But what happens to the actual capital, these massive pieces of machinery? Do they just rust away? Are they melted down? Are they broken up, sold off to different smaller companies?
Rothbard wrote about that in Man, Economy, and State. If they can be retooled to their proper purpose, they get retooled. And if they can't, then they either get melted down or just rust away into nothing. Exactly right. So if you have a giant Ford, if you have these Ford factories that make these, $100,000 Ford F-150s, and suddenly no one can afford them or the gas to fuel them, then they could be retooled to make much smaller cars, or they could be, or they just sit vacant until somebody comes along and either clears it out and makes new capital. But yeah, I mean, we have had an enormous misallocation of resources that's going to be reallocated very quickly.
So these enormous pieces of capital will not have the credit to order the raw materials to put into their huge pieces of capital to make these enormous assembly lines, right? So they'll have to break up and then maybe buy smaller inputs with cash or gold or silver, and then have smaller machinery that creates a smaller output.
Yeah, it would be more localized as well. Again, it'd be like you wouldn't have Anheuser-Busch with these giant beer factories. It would be more, I mean, if you go back 50, 60 years, every town had its own brewery. in America. I mean, there was, Staten Island, where I grew up on Staten Island. Staten Island had a brewery. It was like Staten Island beer. And they made the beer for Staten Island. Same thing in Brooklyn and Manhattan, right? And then, Anheuser-Busch came in and, muscled everybody out. And now microbreweries are like making a comeback. And I'm not sure how that's going to play. I think brewery might be actually I think that stuff might survive the inflation in some cases, but survive the end game, because there's nothing, brewing is a method of preserving calories, and that's going to be one of the really important ways is to have long-term calorie preservation. I think the breweries might be a good way to go. Now, I mean, I think they're going to revert away from like pumpkin spiced ale back to, a Pilsner, but they'll go back to their more basic functions. But I think those might be something to look at if you're trying to position yourself to get through to the end game. And I don't know which breweries are going to make it, or which, but I don't think Anheuser-Busch is going to make it. Let me put it that way. Or any of the really large. I think those are going to just break down. I really do, because they won't be able to get the credit. They run on enormous margins with large amounts of credit, and they're not going to be able to get it. So, like you said, the factories, they're just going to, the parts are going to get sold off or melted down or retooled, but they're not going to be at the scale they were at. So, like these large Amazon warehouses, will they be turned into a factory of some kind? They absolutely could be, but I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not that prescient.
What were the other two topics that we were going to discuss that you brought up at the beginning?
Oh, by the way, that was a great idea. If viewers want to recommend topics for us to discuss, you can either contact me or Rafi in the future.
Yeah, or just put it in the comments and hope I catch it.
Or you can, email or write to us.
We're talking about the main sin of Keynesianism, treating money as a point system rather than a commodity.
Yes, and that sort of ties into how inflation affects everything. So the cardinal sin, the main drawdown, or the main philosophical underpinning of why this happened, was that Keynes came around and said, hey, we can just use these as a point system. We don't have to have backing underneath it, or if we do, we don't actually have to honor the backing underneath it. So sort of when the Great Depression happened, he saw the dollars being deflated, or he saw the deflationary crash occurring, and said, everybody needs dollars. Let's just give them dollars. I will crank out a bunch of notes and give it out, and that will solve it. And we'll take all the gold.
If you think about the infantile nature of that kind of thought, like there's nothing about that solution that makes any sense. It's treating I think Keynes wanted to keep the price level of 1921. He wanted to return to that price level as if those are like magic numbers that created prosperity or something. Like it's such a childish way of thinking that it's unbelievable that somebody like him was able to take power in the way that he did, because it's like somebody saying that there is a money tree and you can have prosperity forever just by printing pieces of paper, and people just wanted to believe it because they were in a panic. They weren't thinking.
Yeah. I mean, and the result of that is I mean, this is a nightmare scenario. I don't know, people accuse me of giggling too much in the chat, or I mean, it's sort of a nervous laughter, because I'm like, to stare into the abyss of the economic abyss of what we're looking at, it's very hard. So if I come across as lighthearted, it's I'm just trying to emotionally get through what I'm looking at.
Yeah, same with me. I'm laughing. I have to laugh at this war, even though truly terrifying things have happened, because what else am I going to do? I have to get my sense of humor back, because if you don't laugh at it, you're going to cry at it. And I do cry at it, and I have cried. But that's not how I'm going to get through it. I'm not going to get through it by crying.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I'm not going to get through it by laughing my head off either. But like laughing and crying in these circumstances is really the same thing. It's just that's how you got to treat it.
Yeah, it's the emotional reaction to a very hard situation you're looking at. And what's weird is that we see it sort of before everybody else. I mean, you saw it like 12 years. I'm thankfully only saw it a few months ago or 2 years ago. I don't know if I could have stood looking at it for 12 years like you have.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know exactly what I'm looking at. So in 2019, I thought I was looking at something else. Then 2020 happened, and I was like, oh crap. I guess this is going to be much worse than I thought. And then 2023 happened. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I could get killed here. I could get killed anywhere, but now it's gotten physical. Like in 2020, the end game got mental. And in 2023, now it's getting physical. I don't know what's next other than just bring it on already, because like, okay, I get it. Can we just get on with it already?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's definitely more visceral for you there than it is for me in America right now. But, you know, it will probably catch up to all of us.
The ironic thing is I'm surrounded by countries that are funded by dollars whose local currencies are all dead. Whether you're talking about Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, all their currencies are hyperinflating crap. And, you know, yet they keep bombing. I mean, they don't just stop. They don't stop.
Yeah. Well, do you think so? I think it will stop when the dollar dies. I don't see how the funding, like we talk, you know, the war machine is a giant system. Yeah. I mean, a giant system, especially, you know, to get a tank built, fueled, sent to where it needs to be and operating and maintain that operation is, you know, that's a giant system. So I can't see. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't see how like that continues to. I think things are going to get very primitive. You know, back to like I've said before, you know, the 50 caliber bolted on the back of a pickup truck level of primitive.
Yeah. Then who's gonna make the ammo?
Yeah. Yeah. You can make ammo at home. That is a cottage industry. It's not as good as far as I understand, but I've seen people, you know, they get a little hand press. You can actually make cottage industry ammo. What's his face? Jay Stark, the guy with the 3D printed gun in Germany. You heard of him?
No.
Okay. Well, Germany has like some of the strictest rules on earth for firearms. So he did everything himself. He made a 3D printed gun that apparently is very good. And then he made the ammo at home, and he was like, a reporter followed him and he went into like some deep forest and show him, you know, full auto fire and everything made himself. Eventually the feds got to him. I think but he had a bad heart. And I think the pressure, the feds were closing in on him, and he had like a heart attack or something, because I think the pressure was really getting to him. But his designs live on.
Well, I got a provisional license, meaning I already, just to clear it up, I already own a gun. I've owned a gun since 2021, but it was taken from me in the middle of COVID for stances that I took. And now I got the provisional license back, and I have to wait for something to come in the mail because they can't email it or something. And then I got to pay 200 shekels and then go to a shooting range and then ask the police nicely for my gun back. And hopefully they say yes. I can't tell if the lightening of gun regulations in Israel is just a rumor or something that maybe the government is allowing the paperwork to go through quicker, but not actually arming people. I'm getting very conflicted signals here. I don't know what's actually happening. I don't even trust that the government wants us alive anymore. I really don't know what to think. It's that paranoid and that crazy. And the kids aren't in school, and they're destroying the next generation. It's like nothing here makes any damn sense. But I'd rather be here than in America when the dollar collapses. You know, just because the way I put it is that everyone's going to have to fall back on the culture that made them great.
Oh.
And if if the people around you don't have that shared culture, then you're going to be in trouble. But if you're like, let's say in, I don't know, Boulder, Colorado, where everyone's a Mormon, you'll probably be much better off than a city where some people are atheists, some people are woke, some people are just disconnected or have no values, and that would be a much more dangerous place. So you want to be in a place where people have similar moral and ethical values to you, and then you should be safe.
Yeah, as long as those values are like coherent towards the end game too. I mean, you know, if you're just living in where it's like a woke if you're living in San Francisco, which is like a woke paradise, you know, that's probably not going to go very well.
Yeah,
I mean, it's, you know, it's you know, they vote, you know, 97% the same way, but it's just not a way that's going to be very productive in the end game, I would imagine.
Well, do any of them know how to do anything? What do any of them do?
Tech startups, hotdaughter.com.
Hotdaughter.com. Yeah. All
Oh, what
right.
was the other? We had one more topic, and then we can actually. Do you want to break for? Let's break for user questions, and then we can cover
Sure.
the final topic if you want.
Any questions here?
Oh, somebody corrected me. Apparently, you can only reload the ammo that is. So the casing, I guess, has to be factory made. You can't hand make a casing. That makes sense to me. I take your word for it. I don't know that much about making my own ammo. At least not yet. Might be something I have to look into.
Well, I do. I actually do have all of the ammo that I got with the gun originally, because when they confiscated my weapon, they didn't confiscate the ammo. I'm not hiding it or anything. Like I have it, and they didn't take it. All right. So I think maybe there's something I can configure to set that stuff off if somebody invades, but I don't think it would be too safe.
So Dirty Scant asks, why not Bitcoin? Both Rafi and I have covered this exact thing with videos on our channel.
Yeah. I'm not 100% against Bitcoin. If you want to get some Bitcoin just as a speculation that maybe it'll do well in the end game, I don't know for sure that it's going to go to zero. I just all the logic tells me that yes, but if you really want some and you want to speculate on it, buy a little bit of Bitcoin, $1,000 of Bitcoin, whatever, and then maybe you'll make some money off it. I don't think you will, but if it will calm that portion of your mind to cover that base, then do it as a speculation, but don't confuse it with money. That's the problem.
I would disagree on that because I think so. I think putting dollars towards Bitcoin it distracts from where dollars should be going, which is into gold and silver. So if you push Bitcoin price up, then people get confused and they FOMO into Bitcoin instead of FOMOing into gold and silver, and they won't FOMO out until there's a real crisis, and then they're badly positioned to move into where they should have moved in before.
I agree with that sentiment. That's for sure. But if you're on the fence and you believe in gold and silver, but you're not quite sure about Bitcoin and you just want a little bit just to keep your mind at ease, then okay, fine, keep your mind at ease. Just know that Bitcoin is based on gold and silver, and that's it. As long as you know that, then do what you need to do for your speculative addictions. Question for Rafi: what percent gold versus dollar today? Meaning how much gold to hold versus how much dollars to hold. Look, that's the way I answer that is everybody's different. I say, take your gold positions and your dollar positions, and then imagine the worst possible scenario given those positions, either possibility. So, for example, let's say you have 20% cash, 80% gold, just to pick a number, and then gold goes to 10,000 tomorrow. Are you happy, or are you like freaking out because you didn't spend those other 20%? I'd be fine, whatever. It wouldn't bother me. But if gold, let's say, gets cut in half because there's a huge deflationary crash and crisis, which is still possible, if it gets cut in half, it won't be for more than a few days. But if you're leveraged and you're forced out, then forget it. So you don't want to be 100% gold for that reason, because you want to be able to buy that dip if it happens. So whatever percentage is good for you, if you imagine gold being cut in half, are you panicking or are you just uncomfortable? If you're uncomfortable, you're fine. If you're panicking, you're not fine. So pick the number for you.
So Hanker3 asks, do you think in the very near future we'll be able to sell 10-ounce bars of silver to pay off debt? You can sell 10-ounce bars of silver to pay off debt now. I think the real question you're asking is how much debt do you want to be able to pay off with the silver? The kind of scenario Rafi and I are talking about is you will be able to, if you have debt to pay off, you can walk out of your house and pick up bills on the street and take those to pay off the debt. That's not the issue. The issue is what you'll be able to buy with the 10-ounce bars of silver. And the answer will be a lot.
Yeah, really. If you think the truth is that money and debt are two sides of the same bill. Literally, most of the Fed's balance sheet, the issuing bank of the dollar, of which the dollar is a liability, most of it is debt. So if the debt falls down, the dollar falls down, and you're paying off debt with the dollars that are the debt. And so as the dollar falls, the debt falls. It all falls together. And then all you're left with is gold and silver. That's it. A cow. In Zimbabwe, use cows for currency.
But yeah, you will debt is, the outstanding debts you have during the final peak of the hyperinflation, that will all go away. Now, there might be deflationary, we're in deflation right now, and it can be hard to get through that period. But if you understand what you're looking at and what you're looking forward to on the other side, you can plan accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure, like Rafi's saying, make sure you have some cash so you don't get blown out of your metals positions in a panic.
I want to. Were you online Friday afternoon when gold made that jump? Because I wasn't here. It was already Sabbath for me. So what happened to make gold jump to, like, what was it, 2013 from, what was it,
I think it's a 2040 right now. I checked this morning.
I don't think it's 2040.
I'll tell you in a second. I was looking this morning. I thought maybe I misread. Maybe it was 2014. Let's see.
Yeah, I think it was
2018 right now.
2018.
Okay. I don't know any specific. I mean, I was there when the jump happened. I looked at my phone. Oh, I don't know what specifically occurred to make that happen. I mean, the market moves in mysterious ways. It was coinciding with Jamie Dimon selling off like 100 million shares of JP Morgan. So
yeah.
Maybe yeah. Did you hear that part?
No, I didn't.
Apparently he's never sold JP Morgan before. And this was like an enormous sale. I mean, it's some hundreds of millions of dollars.
His personal shares?
Yes, his personal shares. He sold off a massive stake of his personal stake in the company that he runs, and apparently he's never done it in 20 years.
If you would tell me that that there's one man who's actually running all these schemes, and you were to tell me it was Jamie Dimon, I'd be like, yeah, I guess maybe.
There's a story of the JP Morgan in the, I think it might have been, I think he was dead by the 20s. So I think this was in the teens or even the aughts, but he was getting his shoe shined, and the shoe shine boy said, yeah, the stock market stuff. Yeah, I'm really getting into it. Like, I think it's neat. He like gets up immediately and like sells he like clears out the stock market, because he's like, if the shoe shine boy's in this, then we're in for a crash right now. But that jerk didn't even warn the shoe shine boy. Like that guy was such a psychopath. Like he wouldn't even warn the people. It's like Bill Gates and all these people. Like Bill Gates, he's acting as if he can see the end game, because he's one of the largest holders of P-Silv. He's one of the largest holders of farmland in the world. Like he's behaving exactly as I would were I having Bill Gates' wealth. And he's not telling anybody. Like he's such a jerk.
He's more than a jerk. I'm almost finished with the real Anthony Fauci, RFK's book, and Bill Gates features in that pretty prominently. The guy is really a psychopath.
Yeah, and I'm sure gifted psychopaths often make it to the top. One wonders if Jamie Dimon doesn't also behave in similar ways. I don't know the man well enough, but like I'm sure he's not cuddly. I'm sure he's not a nice guy.
Mm-hmm. So Jamie Dimon sold 100 million shares of JP Morgan. Did he have a press conference? Did he try to explain it? Did he frame it in any way?
Yes, he framed it as he wanted to diversify. But then gold spiked up. So I'm wondering if he didn't plow it into gold.
Okay. So I have noticed that Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, and I think two other really big systemically important banks, they had a really bad day on Friday. So I'm wondering if that JP Morgan sale pushed down the banking sector. It depends when the JP Morgan announcement, when the Jamie Dimon announcement was. Then you had these big bank stocks falling and then gold rising, which is exactly what we want to see towards the end game. We want to see gold rise on bank weakness. That's perfect technical action for us. And let's let it keep going before the world blows up. That would be nice.
All right. Any other questions, or we can move on to the final topic we had?
What was the final topic we had?
What a healthy banking system looks like. Like how to avoid this, how to avoid the abyss in the future. Like we're gonna have to go through this and go, oh man, that was a bad idea. Okay.
Yeah. So it's before we get to this question, it's important to understand that banks are not the problem, right? That we're not looking for an end game where there are no more banks and banking is illegal. And we're not going to blame all our problems now on bankers. They just happen to be holding the pieces of capital that are given to them by the state to print money, and they're given the drug, so to speak. So they're getting high on their own stash. I guess you could call it that way. But we need banks. You need banks. You can't function without banks.
Yeah, of course. I'm just saying what a healthy banking system looked like, and what it will look like, or what we need to make it look like. And does reg you know the I guess we can just move on to it. I don't see any particular questions coming in. So the way this got started was the wildcat banks in the Wild West were issuing notes on money they didn't have, right? And they started failing at these regional bank failures, and this culminated, I think, in what, 1905 or 1912 was it? That's when J.P. Morgan had to bail out the system personally, and then he got together and on Jekyll Island they said, let's make the Federal Reserve.
What books have you read that inform you of this point in history?
Creature from Jekyll Island.
Okay.
And I did some research on the crime of 73. I haven't done, I wouldn't say I read a book on it.
Okay. Because yeah, the very early 20th century leading up to 1929, those were pretty tectonic financial years in terms of setting up the current system. So if you read what happened from the 1870s, like basically post Civil War to around 1915, post World War I, from post Civil War to post World War I, those were the years when the monetary system really got messed up.
Yeah, but I'm sure I'm sort of I would not be opposed to government saying full reserve banking only, but I think you're opposed to government intervening at all, correct?
As a rule of thumb, yeah.
So the problem is if there's Bank of Rafi and Bank of Phil, and you are a full reserve bank, and I am calling myself a full reserve bank. However, I'm a greedy SOB, so I am writing notes against the money I don't have. I can undercut you on interest rates. So so a full reserve bank has to charge a fee.
You can. I think Rothbard wrote about this in the History of Money and Banking. And he said what was going on then was like, if you would try to undercut me by inflating and then pushing your rates down, then what I could do is I could, open an account at your bank, transfer my, and then call on my deposits and try to flush you out, which you'd have little banks attacking each other, trying to keep each other honest. And that would be a pretty good counterweight. I mean, every bank would probably still inflate to some degree, but they would know how much they could do before they attract a competitor to try to redeem them and pull their pants down. So yeah, I think the system was called, if anyone wants to look it up, I think the system was called the Suffolk, like Suffolk, Virginia.
Right. Okay. So I see. So you don't need the government to say, okay, full reserve only, and we'll have the inspectors come by and do audit. I mean, they do it now, and it obviously doesn't work very well.
No, that would be a centralized system of inspection. You need each company checking the other one by threatening to stage a run.
Like the USDA, when they first formed, it was just a visual inspection of the meat. So the inspector had this like metal meat hook, and he would like hook the meat and inspect it. Okay, looks good. If he got a diseased meat, he would just hook the next one, and he was like the biggest spreader of a disease vector was the meat hook that the USDA inspector was using. So, these things never work the way they're supposed to work. So, in principle, I do agree. I'm just wondering like how to keep the banks being honest, because as a person, I want to put my money in a bank, and I want it to be safe there, and it's a big fear. Let's say you're successful and you put your life savings into a bank, and you don't want to store it at home, and then the bank goes bankrupt, and now you're penniless.
Yeah,
which is about to happen again, but different reasons. So all I can, life is not without its risks. So I guess there's no way to avoid it. It's just to diversify into it.
So what would an ideal bank system look like? What's the job of a bank in a free market?
I would say the primary responsibility is to store money, and real money. Like a bank is where you would go to vault your gold. So I think like a pawnbroker today acts more like a real bank than say like Wells Fargo.
I think it's pretty simple. Like you have demand deposits, you have time deposits. Demand deposits are deposits that your depositor can take out at any time, on demand, right? And those should be 100% backed. But if you have time deposits which earn an interest, and you want to deposit your gold and earn an interest on it, you should know that they're being loaned out at rates of interest that are higher than you're getting, so the bank can take the difference. But there is some risk, and the bank has to assess where is it going to lend your funds with a decent chance of getting them back, and what's the interest that it's owed. Time deposits can be loaned out. That's the purpose of a bank, to loan people's savings to productive activities, but you can't just get them back whenever you want because they're time deposits.
Well, can time deposits be guaranteed? Because let's say the CEO says, hey, this guy comes up with, he's got this new website, hotdaughter.com. I think it's really going to go to the moon. I'm going to take your silver and I'm going to invest in this.
They can be guaranteed by other, I guess, backstops, say insurance, or in the insurance fund has a certain amount of gold and silver to it.
Yeah. But then if you have insurance, I mean, you just get, this web gets very, mess my hair, what's left of my hair anyway. This web is it gets so convoluted, and then you risk the entire thing doing what it's about to do, is crashing down now. Now, whether, if it has a healthy underpinning, but if you have insured deposits and the insurer can't make, let's say the insurance goes bad and the banker invested into hotdaughter.com, then again, you're back where you started, where you lost everything again.
Okay. Well, so I think we're coming to the point where if you have a free market system, you're going to create some sort of a pyramid. However, but it's not going to be this centralized pyramid where a crazy actor like a government with the power to counterfeit money can just build it as fast as he wants. It's going to be like an interconnected monetary pyramid where, it's engineered by the free market with supports and trusses, and like an engineer would build a bridge.
If one part blows, the whole thing doesn't blow. I think that's what you're saying. Yeah. I see what you're saying there. So the way I would see it is the time deposit needs to have like, if you're going to engage in an investment, you need to know that there's a non-zero chance you could lose said investment. So the demand deposit may be 100% backed. That's just money in the vault and you can take it out whenever you want. The time deposit, maybe you and the banker sit down and talk about what you're going to invest it in together. Though I guess the way the bank works is it kind of pools the money. Like it takes the big pool and then it goes and finds, investments usually locally and that's another thing. The system of this like national Wells Fargo banks, that's going to go away. It'll probably be going back to local decentralized banking again as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about local investments, local deposit, the local deposits are used for the local investments. So then, and then you have communities, there's sort of a community enforcement mechanism as well, because the bank manager lives in town. He's got the people in town. He's like Jimmy Stewart and It's a Wonderful Life, right? So there's a social mechanism where, like, they're going to tar and feather him if he loses all their money. He can't just skip town to the Bahamas where his beachfront property is, right?
Yeah.
So where was I going with this? Oh, so if you have, let me ask you this: interest because interest is a promise for more money. So if every bank is promising interest on the time deposits and the money, it would have to be at the rate of money supply growth, of the actual digging of the money out of the ground, right? Because if there's more, then you've got a boom. You've got a Keynesian boom.
Why do you necessarily have a Keynesian boom?
Okay. So if let's say there's 1 ounce of gold and your bank has promised that ounce of gold, and my bank has promised that ounce of gold as interest, right? There's only the 1 ounce of gold.
Right. Okay.
So
then you have a bigger question. Let's say you mined all the gold in the planet and there's no more, the money supply can't expand anymore. So are you at a point where you can no longer earn interest? What I imagine would happen in that theoretical world is that, okay, the money supply doesn't expand, but maybe if you loan out your gold, maybe you don't get interest, but you get a deduction in your fees for storage.
I see. Yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. That would be a way to do it.
Because in that world, what would be happening is that prices would fall very, very. They'd fall faster than in a world where you're continually mining more gold, right? Because if the gold supply is absolutely constant, and the goods and services supply is continually rising, then prices would fall very fast, and that money that you would save would be extra. Would be, a penny saved is a penny earned, or a gold ounce saved, gold ounce earned. So that's how it would work.
I have a hay penny from I think my great grandfather. We have a hay penny lying around. Like the deflation was so severe, they had to cut the penny in half. Make half pennies.
What does that mean? What's a halfpenny?
Oh, it's a half penny. It's one half of a penny.
From when?
1890s, I believe.
Deflation in the 1890s?
Yeah, the deflation, because the money system was more or less sound back then, the deflation, the prices at the beginning of the 18th century, 19th century, price at the beginning of the 19th century collapsed by the end of it because you had enormous productivity and a sound money system. So they had to, the way they had denominated the dollar, it got so deflationary they had to cut the penny in half. So they were producing these little coins called half pennies, which you put in Appalachia, it becomes the halfpenny, right? And they just kind of give it a nickname of a halfpenny.
Dimitri Shmerkovich asks, he gave us a tip, $20. Thank you, Dimitri. I appreciate it. What do you see happening to U.S. mortgages in the end game?
You mean the existing mortgages or new mortgages?
Well, let's do both.
Existing mortgages are all going to be repaid with money you pick up off the street. That's not the issue. New mortgages so from what I understand in the history, going back to even at the height of the Great Depression, the height of the boom of the 20s, you needed 50% down on a house, and the interest rate, it was like a 5-year loan for the other half at pretty high interest rates. So there wasn't like this 30-year fixed mortgage or 40-year fixed mortgage. Like it was, you lived with your parents until you could afford a house.
Right.
That's the way I understand it. There wasn't much, the mortgage environment was very, very different. And I'll tell you what they do this is what they do in Africa. Some countries in Africa, they have a very communal system. So if you come into money, all your family descends upon you like locusts, and you're supposed to give you're supposed to share with the wealth with your tribe, basically, your clan. So what someone will do if they come into some money, they'll build a wall of a house immediately so that they don't have the wall. They don't have the money anymore. And when they come to the next payday, they build the next wall, and they build the house slowly over time like that because they gotta build the wall before their cousins descend on them like vultures. So it may turn into something like that. I don't know. Oh, we got Homer talk. Is Phil and Rafi, how will Rick Rule's new bank fare in the collapse? I believe he's talking about Rick Rule's Battle Bank, which is supposed to be a full reserve bank, much like Peter Schiff's was. Mm-hmm. But it's full reserve of dollars, as far as I know. So
that's useless.
Yeah, it'll go with the dollar.
I mean, all banks are basically full reserve banks because the Fed won't allow any of them to fail anyway. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you're not going to lose your nominal dollars. You're going to lose your dollars' ability to purchase anything. That's the path that we're on.
Why did they hate Peter Schiff's bank so much? Because it wasn't affecting, you're right. It wasn't affecting that system. The dollar system was still fine. It's just but they hated it.
I don't know. I think it's personal. They hate his father. His father hated the IRS. And Peter Schiff is an asshole sometimes. So a good kind, a good kind of asshole. I like him. But he's probably, people aren't very friendly to him, and he's not very friendly to other people. It's just he probably made some enemies.
Just like local politics, or didn't grease the right palms or show proper respect.
I don't know what happened. How much longer until Australia is cashless?
Cashless. I think they're talking about the CBDCs or the yeah. I concur with Rafi on that assessment. Even if CBDCs come for a short period of time, it's just going to accelerate the move away. When you go to the store and you can't buy beef or mutton, if you're in Australia, it'd be mutton. You can't buy mutton with your CBDC. What are you going to do? You're going to go to the manager and say, look, I got a little silver. I really like mutton. Can I have some? And I'll give you some silver. It's just going to accelerate it. The forces of the free market cannot be stopped. No more than you can be an anti-marketeer, just like you could be an anti-grabber. Doesn't mean the gravity's not there. The forces of the market are not there. They are there.
Yeah. I mean, you can also be a trans man or woman and mutilate your genitals and pretend you're something else, but you're going to be miserable because you're going to be missing your genitals. That's all.
Question: do you grow food? How do you overcome food issues? I grow a little bit. I'm not good at it. I've tried. There's this thing called a Jerusalem artichoke, which I'm told is extremely calorically intensive and like grows like a weed.
Yeah,
So
they're really good. They're really good. I
all
like
right, I'm
them.
gonna plant those. I've tried. Tried. I planted pumpkins, and the first couple years I planted in the backyard behind
Actually,
me.
hold on. Phil, keep talking. I'm going to be back
Okay.
in 30 seconds. I want to show you a potato, and I got to plug in my computer. Hold on.
Okay. So I planted pumpkins in my backyard, and rodents ate the vines. So it'd grow, and then it'd come out, and there were like little nibbles all over everything, and the plant rotted, and the pumpkins died when they were little green things. So I said, okay, I'm going to plant it on the side of my house where I can keep a better eye on it, and there's a little more foot traffic in my area, and this beautiful pumpkin plant grew. I mean, beautiful, and it spread like crazy. And I thought I was, I had the green thumb finally. One pumpkin, 50, 100 flowers, one pumpkin. So it was good too. It was a good pumpkin, not a bad one, but just one, and I don't know why. And I planted some basil, and I overwatered it, and they all died. The tomatoes I got some tomatoes, and I got Korean peppers. I did get a good batch of Korean peppers, and I got blueberries and mint. Mint I can grow. Mint grows pretty easily too. And then I have a couple of Korean. My wife's Korean. I have a couple of Korean vegetables plants. I don't even know their English name. One is actually the transliteration is money tree. It's donnamu, which is money tree. So I don't know what it actually is, but if you just transliterate the Korean words, it means money tree. So I'm growing a money tree in my backyard too. And but
by the way, these are the potatoes that I grew. Some of these. This is the biggest one that I got. This is a purple potato. I spent about 6 months growing it, and we had a nice harvest, and then we made fried purple potato balls. But I'm not great at growing fruit. I do grow some successfully, but my approach is not to be self-sufficient on my own stuff. I can't do that. Maybe I could if I knew what I was doing, but it's not in my skill set. So I'm just connecting with local farmers in my area and saying, look, if you want to connect after the shekel doesn't buy anything, like come to me and I'll give you some real money.
Hey, Crop Duster, yeah, there are no mods. You got Gentleman's Channel here spamming Free Palestine. I don't know if you want to block him or not.
Yeah, let's block him. How do I do that? I keep scrolling.
I don't know. We're economists. We're not.
Okay. Well, I mean, just to deal with that in one minute here. Let's see. Block, report, pin message. No. Hide user on this channel. Okay. Got it. Free Palestine basically means all Jews here should die, because if you want to just open the borders and allow Palestinians, or whatever they're called, they're just Arabs. If you want to allow them to just go wherever they want in Israel and do whatever they want, it sounds nice, but that means they're just going to kill us all, and we're just going to fight in the streets until one side or the other is dead. So we put up walls. Okay. There are realities here that have to be recognized, and that's it. So there's
I'm not gonna. I won't dive too far into it. I would just say, the notion of everyone sitting around the campfire singing "Kumbaya" is a juvenile notion. So, the reality of fighting over space is as old as mankind itself. So, I don't know. We're all gonna have to make our. I mean, it could be coming to America in ways that we don't imagine too. I mean, it could be if like you said, if the gold is truly gone at Fort Knox, we could have a complete collapse into states and maybe even sub-states. So yeah, I don't even know what that's good. I mean, are Virginia and Maryland going to start fighting over their border again? I don't know.
I mean, from rumors that I'm hearing out of Gaza, people who have been there. It's a citizens' army. There are soldiers all around me that have been there and done some missions. They're telling me that this wasn't really Hamas. It was more like Iranian trained Iranian Revolutionary Guards that were imported into Gaza to start a war. And then you think about the border in Mexico. How do you guys know how many people are bleeding across the Mexican border every day? Tens of thousands. Who knows? And most of them not Mexican. Most of them are not Mexicans. They go to Mexico, they go to the border, they go up, and who knows where the hell they're from? How many of them are Iranian Revolutionary Guards? How many of them are Hamasniks? You have no idea where the hell they're coming from.
I know. I'm aware, Rafi. I'm aware. I'm very, very aware.
Okay, so yeah,
yeah, the global masterminds controlling all this are like, they are trying, what they're trying to do is destroy the nation state. It won't work because it's humanity's, we have an instinct to tribalize. Now, that can be in a good form of, like, we formed what was the nation state of America, where you could, once you got in legally, you could, keep your old values, but bring in the new values, and everyone just kind of respect each other, and we live in peace and harmony. Or it could be the bad kind of tribalism, where somebody looks slightly different than you, and they live on the hill. They live on the other side of that hill, and you guys are sworn enemies, and you're gonna kill each other if you ever see each other. So it can. That's the instinct. But you can't get rid of it. You have to harness it in a productive way. You can't say, oh, it's Homo economicus. We're all exactly the same. We have no differences. Because people they have different values, they have different beliefs, and if you can't agree to live in peace and harmony with those separate beliefs, then you're going to end up in severe conflict.
That's one thing I wanted to say about the West before we close off this live stream. Sure. One of the problems, maybe the problem, was that the West had this idea that if we just cooperate without any tribalism, without looking at our racial lines or competing lineages, as Brett Weinstein puts it, then we can become a lot more productive, which is true, right? That's true. If we put lineage to the side, and I don't care that I'm a Jew, and I don't care that you're a non-Jew or whatever you are, then we can work together. And I'm all for working together. I don't care if people are Jewish or not. We can team up, we can work together, we can produce things. Perfect, wonderful, no problem at all. The problem is that once you put lineage behind you, then a lot of core values that help societies gel together get erased as well. And then you just become a society of production, and then you become greedy, and then you start stealing stuff because production is all that you're living for, without going back to your deeper, broader family within your lineage. So somehow we have to maintain lineage as important, whatever lineage you come from, and see the values of your lineage, whatever is best about your lineage. And you also have to put it aside to a degree that is great enough that you are able and willing to work well with other lineages as well. There has to be some kind of middle ground. You can't get rid of race. You can't not be racist at all. You have to care about your own family more than you care about other people's family, but you also have to care about the human race enough that you're not going to want to kill people just because they're not in your race.
So Indy asks, sorry to sidetrack real quick. Indy asks, how do you buy property when this falls apart? Personal homeowner deal or realtor? I would imagine personal homeowner deal. Now, how do you get the question? The real question is, how do you get the government to recognize the transfer of property? And that's going to be a thorny issue, because I don't know if those offices are going to be open. Maybe you can get a contract saying as soon as they are open that you will conduct the actual transfer, and then you can transfer the money now. Because with the person selling their home is going to be in dire straits, and they're going to need money immediately. And you will be the one to provide that if you have stacked. And but they may not be able to transfer the house immediately. So I don't know how it's going to work out, and it's going to require some trust, I would imagine, because they could, you give them all the stacks and they go, "Ooh, I never heard of Phil before in my life," I never agreed to anything. So I don't know. It's going to require a certain degree of trust and cooperation, and it's going to depend on where you are locally. I'm sure different people are in different countries and different regions are going to have different experiences.
Mm-hmm. All right, it's 4:00 where I am. It is 10:00 where you are. I think we will close this. Any last words before we meet next week, in case the internet goes down?
I would agree. I would just agree with your assessment. And if you look back to American history, it's always been, until very, very recently, it's never been this American man walking unencumbered by his past. It's always been communities. So there'd be a little German town, a little Koreatown, a little Irish town, villages, and they over time they mingle into a mash. But it's always been local communities and local villages of where their past existed. So this idea of like this unencumbered man is a fiction, and we'll rediscover our roots.
Yeah, let's get to it.
All
All right,
right.
I'll have a good week.
See you next time, Rob.